Welcome to the Wireless LAN News Desk for July 19th, 2019. My name is Tom Carpenter. I'm the CTO at CWNP. And this week in the news, I have three things I want to talk to you about. First of all, there was a report at techrepublic.com on power over Ethernet. Increased power needs for Wi-Fi 6 802.11ax. How does this impact PoE access points? And the opening statement says power over Ethernet, or PoE, is limited to 30 watts. But high power is required for high-performance Wi-Fi 6 access points. Can businesses with existing cabling upgrade without running new cables? And so it was a discussion, and I'll leave it to you to come here and watch the video at Tech Republic if you desire to. But the summary of it is that there are different offerings from the different vendors and different ways to implement these technologies. So for example, Larry Lunetta said it depends on the architecture of each of the access points. As I said, we have a range of access points for Wi-Fi 6, 802.11ax. The higher end multiple radios, etc., does breach the 30-watt PoE sort of standard. We actually came out with a new switch that implements the BT capabilities of higher power distribution. It really depends. You'll have to choose based on your own infrastructure, etc. From a cabling standpoint, for example, Cat 5 and Cat 6, they have different attributes in terms of distance and things like that. But there's no reason that you have to swap out your wires as long as you can get the right power to the access point from a distance perspective. So the summary that they're giving is you may be able to use the cabling you have. But I think the question that's being asked here is only part of the question. So there's two parts to this question. It really should be, can businesses with existing cabling and existing PoE supplies upgrade without running new cables or upgrading their PoE supplies? So in other words, you might need switches with more PoE budget. You might need switches that can actually do a different PoE standard that gives you more than 30 watts. So the point is, it's not just about the cables, it is also about the switches, and we don't want to play it down and act like it's just about the cables. But cable runs can be very expensive because they're time consuming. So in some cases, running 10 cables can be more expensive somewhat significantly than just installing a new switch if that's all you need to do. So if all you need to do is upgrade the switches, your costs may be lower than having to also replace cabling. And I think that's probably why they focused on the cabling in this particular news report. But it is important to be thinking about as we look forward to Wi-Fi 6, is your infrastructure from the cables to the switches ready to handle the power demands of these newer devices? The next article comes from the Wall Street Journal. They titled it, "We tested 5G across America. It's crazy fast and a hot mess." Well, what do they mean by that? Well, what they mean is basically the tests they ran showed that the 5G often switched off because of summer heat, leaving the columnists to cool the devices with ice packs or air conditioners. Well, this is nothing new. This is something that you may experience with your phones now. Have you ever left your phone sitting in the seat of the car? The sun is coming through the window, touches it. When you come out, it lets you know, I'm too hot. I can't work for you right now. So that's not necessarily that big of a news. But one of the big things, though, that is big news is that the reality is that 5G is crazy fast when you have good 5G, but we're still in the early implementations of this. So there's a lot of places where you either have 5G, but the back-end infrastructure can't keep up with what 5G could potentially do. There are places where you're supposed to have 5G and you don't quite have 5G, and so it's not giving you the speeds and capabilities that it has. When 5G works at its best, it's beautiful. When 5G is supposed to be there, but it's not working at its best, it's really no better than LTE or 4G. So the reality is it'll take some time. We've got to get the infrastructures upgraded, the back end. We've got to make sure that we have the coverage we need, and there's some learning curve to getting that coverage out there because expertise comes by experience, right? And very few people have actual experience with 5G, right? So as we're implementing it, sometimes we're learning that maybe those nice formulas that we had to calculate the coverage didn't quite pan out the way we expected them to. And we have to make some adjustments. And some have even implemented maps and said, this is where you get 5G in London, for example, and you go to that very spot, even within that range a significant way, and you still don't get 5G. So clearly there's some tuning to be done, but that tuning will be done. And 5G is going to work really well when the tuning is finished and so forth. But don't think you're going to see 5G out in significant rural areas anytime soon. That's probably still several months to years away before we'll begin to see that in those environments. And the final thing is a few pieces of news, actually, from semiengineering.com. And in their week in review, they talked about IoT, security, and auto. And one of the things that I found interesting in here was the T-Mobile network. So they point out that T-Mobile launched a narrowband IoT network last year, and now they're providing asset tracking on the NB-IoT network. So T-Mobile has collaborated with a company called Roambe to offer the Be Aware asset tracking IoT product. I'm not so sure how big of a fan Aerohive will be of these names, but at any rate, Roambe is the provider, Be Aware is the asset tracking capabilities, priced at $10 per device per month, and it gives you portal access to the NB-IoT data. Also, Slovakia-based Sensineo is using T-Mobile's NB-IoT network as well with Twilio's SIM cards so they can track their dumpsters in California, Colorado, and Ohio, right here in my home state, with the placement of smart sensors in the dumpsters. So that's an interesting thing as well. They also determined that in IoT analytics, the top IoT startups are Arundo Analytics, Bright Machines, Dragos, Element Analytics, Foghorn Systems, Iguazio, Iodium, Preferred Networks, Ready Robotics, and Spark Cognition. So if you want to look into some companies that are startups that are doing some stuff in IoT, that might be a good place to start researching them and what they're planning to offer through their startups. Okay, that's all I have for the news this week. I hope that you've heard something interesting and news to you. If you have not registered already, make sure you check out cwnp.com. Click on the link for the Wi-Fi Trek Conference. It's coming up now in just a few weeks, and it's going to be an exciting event in Nashville, Tennessee this year. I look forward to seeing you there, and I'll see you next week on the Wireless LAN News Desk.